Hi Mark and Eric, thanks for submitting your creative writing piece. My name is V and today I'm going to review your submitted work for improvement to help you prepare better for the scholarship exam. I'm going to give you some really important, really useful improvement tips and also 5 major points to take away. I'll also send you through the review paper so that you can go through it in your own time. Okay, so let's get this started with going through what the proposed test is and your response, and then I'll do a live review so that you can see how I go about changing things and improving it. Okay, so this is the the practice exam image. It has now and 2 arrows, tomorrow and yesterday. When I first look at something like that, I think, okay, well we're focusing on this idea of now, but there's also different options. Okay, so it could be a traveling to different time periods, or it could be a focus on the time being now. But let's see what your response is. I'll read it out. 3 options were given to me: change yesterday, change tomorrow, or either stay in the present. So I started to ask myself questions concerning this matter. What can possibly happen if I change yesterday? Maybe I could cause an implausible paradox consisting of mysteries after mysteries. Maybe. What can possibly happen if I change the future? Maybe fill my mind with excessive information that could change my whole life. Who knows? I might even have matrimony tomorrow. Who knows? So I decided to stick with my gut instinct and travel back in time in order to change my tedious present slightly. There I am yesterday, the day that formed my present. As I was witnessing the moments that were synthesized to create yesterday, I started to notice something peculiar, something out of this world. A portal allowing me to travel to any part of the universe. So, as I stepped inside the anomaly, I experienced a spine-tingling feeling starting from my mind and ending near my feet. This feeling was absolutely indescribable, a feeling of immense power, yet daunting and unbearable simultaneously. This feeling was me travelling in a transversal wormhole, which I don't even know how it operates. As I was in the wormhole, I suddenly appeared in a place that will occur in my future, tomorrow. This place that I have travelled to is part of my daily routine, my office. I started to ask myself, why did I travel to my office? Is there something inaccurate about my future? All of a sudden, a screeching sound was let out from outside. Okay, so I'll go through my first thoughts, and then we'll go about how I would review and update this and what would happen in the exam. My first thoughts are that it is quite confusing. I'm not sure what the story is about because, first of all, it says a screeching sound was let out from outside. I would think that would be, the main event in the middle part of the story. At first, it also seems like you're making a decision here. You've got 3 options. So the beginning does make sense because you're talking about what your options are. So, and here I decided to stick with my gut instinct and travel back in time in order to change my previous tedious present slightly. So what is your tedious present at the moment? There's no indication of what that is, so there is a bit of confusion. So there I was yesterday. There I am yesterday, the day that formed my present. And this here, we'll go through it anyway, quickly, and then I can go back in detail. And the other part, which is quite confusing, is this part here about the wormhole, because that part there, I'm struggling to link that to this part here, changing your tedious present slightly, because out of nowhere this isn't explained, and then you jump into this idea of the piece jumps into the idea of a wormhole. Okay, so as I said before, at first it seems like it's making a decision given options, then there is a wormhole, then there is an office, and these seem unrelated. There's no sort of beginning, middle, and end, and that's really important in creative writing. It doesn't necessarily have to be distinct beginning, middle, and end, but there has to be some form of storytelling, and storytelling can come in a multitude of forms. Here it says especially about traveling in the past, so that thing here is to focus on how the story unfolds. There are instances where stories do jump back and forth, such as the movie Momentum, but these are complex and usually they're done in a way which has logic. So the main part here with your creative writing is to create some form of story from beginning to end, which doesn't confuse the reader. There are instances in my creative writing book which use this style that you're trying to bring out, but it's done in an expert way, which is quite difficult. But the key is that the story reads well, and I'll show you how you can do that as well. As I said before, define beginning, middle, and end, and the main event happened at the end with no resolution. So this part here, all of a sudden a screeching sound was let out from outside. That doesn't seem like a resolution end, because it seems like there is an event that is supposed to happen. Okay, so we'll go through now the live review. This is how I generally approach a question. First of all, look at the image. The arrows are pointing to the past and future, but it appears that now is the time. So the writing, in order to have a relationship to the image, you need to talk about now. And it also seems like the person has to make a choice. The beginning is good. So this beginning here in this piece is actually quite good because you talk about your options. The middle starts off well. Change to my tedious present, but then nothing eventuates. Here I would change this, create the link. So it's this part here, and I'll put my review. So here you've said, so I decided to stick with my gut instinct and travel back in time in order to change my tedious present slightly. What is your current tedious present? And also so that the reader can understand what you're changing. And so obviously from there I would change most of this section here, because then it needs to flow quite well. The last part here is that one of the tests I like to apply is I ask myself, what is this story about? When I can't actually explain that, it means that there are links that are missing. So if I were to rewrite this story, I would say that this story is about a man who is now in his office because he's an office worker who is dismayed about his life because he finds it tedious, and he goes back in time to see how he got to his present, and from his present he goes on to the future to imagine something else that he would like. Okay, so that would be his story. And now what we'll do is we'll go through the live correction. In the exam, what I would recommend is that you allocate your first part to planning, then to writing, and then you also need to do a bit of a review, because during that review time you'll pick up a few sort of inconsistencies and also just minor errors which do add to extra points. Okay, so let's go through and review. 3 options were given to me: change yesterday, change tomorrow, or stay in the present. Okay, so I started to ask myself questions concerning this matter. So I started to ask I started to ponder and ask myself, questions. What would happen? So now here what I'm doing is going through the review. I'm also changing the language as well, making it a bit more clearer. What would happen if I changed the things that happened yesterday? Maybe I could cause an implausible paradox consisting of mysteries after mysteries. I probably would change that, because a paradox is something that doesn't really, the meaning of it is something that doesn't flow logically. Implausible is obviously, it adds to that as well, but consisting of mysteries after mysteries, it doesn't really, for me, it doesn't really emphasize anything strong. I would probably change it. Maybe I could cause, what I'll do is, we'll leave it for now and we can change it later. Maybe, what would happen if I changed the future? I could fill my mind with excessive information that could change my whole life now. Who knows? I might even get married tomorrow. Who knows? So what we'll do is we'll highlight this. We can change this later. This is all part of the review. We want to get through the review quickly when you think about when you're in the exam, and you should highlight areas that you're going to change later, so that by the time you finish correcting or going through your own essay, going through your writing piece, you'll have that time, your brain will work it out so that you can then go through that quickly. Okay, so let's go through the second part. So I decided to stick with my gut instinct and travel back in time in order to change my tedious present slightly. Here I've said create some form of description about your present so that the reader can understand what you're changing, because now the present is the most emphasized part in this image here. So I decided to stick with my gut instinct and travel back in time in order to change my, so travel back a day to yesterday in order to change my tedious present slightly. So I decided to stick with my gut instinct and travel back to yesterday in order to change my life now, because this is the present. The tedious filing of papers, the constant computer screen buzzing, and the air conditioned and the perfectly air conditioned room, office makes me feel like a guinea pig. Not human, just a spoke in a wheel in continual motion. No real feeling, just work. Okay, so that's explaining about your, I guess, the tedious present slightly. You add more of an idea of where you are. To the reader, they'll get the idea of the tedious filing of papers, what you do, what this character does, the constant computer screen buzzing, and the perfectly air-conditioned office makes me feel like a guinea pig. Not human, just a spoke in a wheel in continual motion. No real feeling, comma, just work. How did I ever get here? Now, my chance. So you've got your chance now, and you go into yesterday. Okay, so we can get rid of this. There I am, yesterday. there I was. Yesterday. The day that formed my present. As I was witnessing the moments that were synthesized to create yesterday, I started to notice something peculiar, something out of this world, a portal allowed me to travel out to any part of this universe. Okay, as I said before, this is something that then jumps into the wormhole, which has no real relationship to the idea of moving back yesterday. So what we'll do is we'll emphasize this section here. We'll emphasize the witnessing of moments that were synthesized to create yesterday. So what happened yesterday? You have to now explain how you get to yesterday and what you did to change your tedious present. Because I guess that's a goal, and that's what we've said before. Okay, this section here, just notes. So there I was yesterday, the day that formed my present, and I really like that as well. The day that formed my present. What I would then say is, it all made sense now. I experienced a spine-tingling feeling. So what had been done in order to get to where you were now? It wasn't just yesterday which led me to where I was now. It was accumulation. It was an accumulation of decisions. I chose to accept the office job. I went into work. I did work, and then I went home. It was exactly what I did yesterday. It was exactly what I did the day before and before that. Okay, so this is where it makes sense. So there I was yesterday, the day that formed my present. It all made sense now. I experienced a time-stealing feeling. Why didn't I take a decision now to leave? So obviously he's wanting to leave his job. It wasn't just yesterday which led me to where I was now. It was an accumulation of decisions. I chose to accept the office job. I went into work, I did work, and then I went home. Every day. It was exactly what I did yesterday. It was exactly what I did the day before and the day before that. Okay, so now there's some idea of what's happening. Okay, there's an explanation of why he's come to where he is now. So let's go through with your writing, this part of the writing. There was Okay, so part of the wormhole I would get rid of because there's no relationship to sort of the structure that we're trying to put in here. But let's see what else we can use, because in review time you want to reuse a lot of the stuff you've written because you don't want to throw it away. If you can, use it and readapt it. Okay, I quite like this section here. This place that I've travelled to is part of my daily routine, my office. I started to ask myself, why did I travel to my office? Is there something inaccurate about my future? Okay, so it was exactly what I did the day before and the day before that. Now we'll need to go back into the present where you are because you've explained what happened in the past. And now what we'll do is, because we also want to explain the future, we'll have to somehow merge it. Okay, so it was exactly what I did the day before and the day before that. Now, in the present, I have the power to make a decision to change my life. I walk in to my boss's office and open my mouth slightly. My mind is thinking. I don't want to work here anymore. Unfortunately, my mouth ends up saying, "Hi, John. I just wanted to ask you about never mind. I'll fix it myself." Now, in the present, so let's read it through. Now, in the present, I have the power to make a decision to change my life. I walk into my boss's office and open my mouth lightly. My mind is thinking, I don't want to work here anymore. Unfortunately, my mouth ends up saying, "Hi, John, I just wanted to ask you about never mind, I'll fix it myself." Well, my courage failed this time. So where is will happen in the future? Likely tomorrow. I'll let's see. Tomorrow will be no different. It will be a part of my daily routine. I'll arrive at my office and do work until 5 p.m. on the dot. I started to ask myself, why didn't I choose to change my future? It only takes one decision. And don't forget, a lot of courage. Okay, so this is the story rewritten again. We'll see how many words it is. It's about 367 words, so that is quite a long length. What we will do is we'll cut this down to about 250 words. But let's go through it, and we'll read it through again one last time, and then I'll sort of highlight different areas. Okay? 3 options were given to me: change yesterday, change tomorrow, or stay in the present. So I pondered and asked myself some questions. What would happen if I changed the things that happened yesterday? Maybe I could finally be free from my office job. What we'll do is we'll also take these, do the final here, and then you can see how it's changed. So 3 options were given to me: change yesterday, change tomorrow, or stay in the present. So I pondered and asked myself some questions. Can you see here that in my review I'm also picking up little errors that I'm doing this because this is a live correction. What would happen if I changed the things that happened yesterday? Maybe I could finally be freed from my office job. Maybe. What would happen if I changed the future? I could fill my mind with excessive information that could change my whole life now. Who knows? I might even get married tomorrow. Who knows? So I decided to stick with my gut instinct and travel back to yesterday in order to change my life now. The tedious filing of papers, the constant computer screen buzzing, and the perfectly air-conditioned office makes me feel like a guinea pig. Not human, just a spoke in a wheel in continual motion. No real feeling, just work. How did I ever get here? Now, my chance to change this. There I was yesterday. To change this had arrived. There I was yesterday, the day that formed my present. It all made sense now. I experienced a spine-tingling feeling. Why didn't I take a decision now to leave? It wasn't just yesterday which led me to where I was now. It was an accumulation of decisions. I chose to accept the office job. I went into work, I did work, and then I went home. Every day. It was exactly what I did yesterday. It was exactly what I did the day before and the day before that. Now, in the present, I have the power to make a decision to change my life. I walk into my boss's office and open my mouth slightly. My mind is thinking, I don't want to work here anymore. Unfortunately, my mouth ends up saying, hi John, I wanted to ask you about, never mind, I'll fix it myself. Well, my courage failed this time. So what will happen in the future? Tomorrow will be no different. It will be part of my daily routine. I'll arrive at my office and do work until 5 p.m. on the dot. I started to ask myself, why didn't I choose to change my future? It only takes one decision, and don't forget, a lot of courage. Okay, so that's sort of the story that I've readapted. You can see there are quite a substantial amount of changes, but the key here was to actually find a logical sequence. So sticking with your gut instinct here, travel back in yesterday. So you were there yesterday, and then after that, now in the present, and then tomorrow will be no different. Okay, so you've got the three links: the present, tomorrow, and yesterday. And obviously here, this section here would be the present. So you make a greater emphasis on that. And that links to this. So if someone were to ask me, what is this story about? I would say that the story is about a person given the option to change his life from moving yesterday to tomorrow or to staying in the present. And that's all it is. And part of this is to change his life, that he doesn't like being in the office because he feels like a guinea pig, and that he's only a spoke a spoke in a moving wheel. So as in, he doesn't really have much control. He's just, I guess, an instrument in a bigger picture. Okay, so that's sort of what you're trying to achieve in the exam. You're trying to make a logical sequence, and that is so crucial in the exam, where I've seen a lot of people with great language skills, great storytelling skills, but it's the ability to link all those items together to form a cohesive story. Okay, so let's move on from there. So we've done our live correction. Let's move on to improvement points. Part of the thing was expression and tenses. We'll you've got a great vocab, so try and use that vocab with clear expression and tenses, and you can fix that through the review stage. The most important part here, I think, is structuring and planning. Always know what your story is going to be about. Make sure you can explain the story in one sentence if someone was going to ask you about it. Also, make sure that you do have a beginning, middle, and end. The goal of creative writing is to tell a story. So this movie called Momentum, even though the story has a number of jumps between the present and the past, the story is about a man who loses his memory and pieces together the past to find out who murdered his wife. So you can see there, I can explain the whole movie in a very simple one sentence, but the movie itself, when you actually see it done, is actually quite a complex movie. So the idea here is the crucial part is the storytelling, but this doesn't need to be in your typical way, as you can see through the movie Momentum. Some really good points about your writing, though, which you should really emphasize, is the use of vocabulary. You've got a great vocab there, which I think is a real strength, because a lot of people don't possess that. And if you can use it to your advantage with great expression and the structure, you could write a really good story. And also the thoughtfulness, I think, is a good point, because I can see that there's a lot of thought that comes behind this, and the interpretation that you've done of this story is quite thoughtful, because you've looked at the image and it relates to the image as well, which is key in getting the points. So there is thoughtfulness there, and that's a really good thing. So use those things to your advantage and improve it. So my overall points to take away are to plan your story. That's really important. Structure it so there is logical progression. So beginning. So apply the one sentence test. The fourth would be to review expression and tense. You can do that through, say, a 3 minute, or depending on how many times, we'll say a 1 to 2 minute check at the end. And the final one I think would be to use your vocab, because I think that is a really good advantage point that you already have, and people who don't have this could people who don't have a good vocab are quite limited in that they won't be able to express themselves as well as you could. Okay, so the overall 5 points to take away is to plan your story. This is really essential because it helps you to write the story quickly. You can structure it so there's logical progression. Once you do the first 2 points, you can see that you'll eliminate things such as this confusing part, because by planning it, you'll be able to see, okay, well, this doesn't work and it doesn't flow logically, you wouldn't include it. Okay, the other part is to apply the one sentence test. So, can you explain your whole story in one sentence? And that will give you a trigger as to whether you're writing in a logical way. The fourth is to review, because you'll pick up a lot of errors, okay, and be able to fix them, which other people may not do. The fifth part is to use your vocab. Use what you've already got and use it to your advantage. It's great that you have an extended vocab, and that is something I think you should capitalize on. Okay, so I hope that has been useful. What I'll do is I'll send this through to you, and I'll also upload this as a video. So thanks again for your submission, and I hope you found it useful. Thank you, and good luck.